In a society obsessed with outward appearance and consumerism, it's really no wonder that Westernized yoga has largely emphasized only the physical aspects of the practice. I mean, it's a lot easier to sell something tangible rather than trying to sell a way of life. I'm not trying to sell you enlightenment, but hopefully after watching this, you'll have a stronger foundation of what it really means to be a yogi or yogini. Yes, I'm a yoga teacher who thoroughly enjoys the physical practice of yoga, but my true passions lie in sharing the life-changing philosophies beyond the physical. This video is part 2 of a yoga philosophy for beginners series that I'm doing. So if you have no idea what the 8 limbs of yoga are, go ahead and watch the first video of the series. And if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the rest of the series. In the last video, I gave you guys a quick history lesson on classical yoga, and we briefly discussed Patanjali's Eightfold Path, also known as the 8 limbs of yoga. In this video, we're digging deeper into the first limb of yoga, the Yamas. It's important to understand that Patanjali was very intentional with how he constructed the 8 limbs of yoga, and that each limb is meant to build upon the skills attained in the previous limb. Therefore, the yamas are supposed to be the foundation from which we grow all other aspects of our practice. There are 5 yamas, and they are essentially guidelines for how we should interact with our environment and others. The first yama is ahimsa, which is usually translated as do no harm. Don't cause harm to yourself, don't cause harm to the environment, don't cause harm to other beings. This is why, to this day, India has the largest percentage of vegetarians in the world, and also why many Western yogis are vegan or vegetarian themselves, because we are in the practice of non-harming. For example, if you're practicing poses without ahimsa, you could be pushing yourself too hard and causing physical harm, or perhaps you're engaging in negative self-talk, which isn't a very yoga way to practice yoga. The second yama is satya, which is translated as being in truth. Simply put, this means to be honest, but on a deeper level, it has to do with integrity and being able to see things as they really are. In my classes, I oftentimes talk about our inner voices and the made-up stories and even lies we can tell ourselves. Satya is a sweet reminder to look a bit closer and distinguish truth from fantasy. The third yama is asteya, or non-stealing. The yogi should never take anything that isn't freely given. This includes both tangible and intangible stealing. For example, if you're late to a meeting with someone, you are stealing time from them. Essentially, asteya has to do with the feeling of abundance and that there is already enough. You don't have to take something from someone, overeat, or shop till you drop if you are living in abundance. Before we dive into the last 2 yamas, I just want to pause briefly and express to you guys that I do not claim to live out this philosophy perfectly. I do my best, and that's all we really can do. But I strongly believe that you can change the world one person at a time. So if you agree with me, go ahead and comment the affirmation, I have much to offer the world. Because that's really the teaching in Namaste. The light in me sees and honors the light within you. We all have light within us. And we'll jump right back into the 4th yama, known as brahmacharya. This one is a little bit more difficult to understand, but it roughly translates to behavior which leads to the divine. Brahmacharya largely has to do with our use of energy, especially when it comes to sex. It's not so much about giving up sex entirely, but rather transmuting the energy of sex for the divine, whatever that means to you. We don't want to abuse the act of making love because it's sacred. But there are certainly other things in life besides sex in which we can misuse our energy. So consider how you're using your energy, and if it's leading you to the divine, and that is practicing brahmacharya. Finally, the last yama is aparigraha, or non-greed. It's similar to how in Buddhism it's said that desire is the root of all suffering. This is certainly difficult to practice in a society that is constantly advertising all the things we need to buy, which creates a feeling of lack. The lesson of aparigraha is that we don't need to be attached to obtaining material things, mastering difficult yoga poses, or even chasing enlightenment to be happy. All we need to do is find contentment and gratitude and just be. So those are the 5 yamas. If you have any questions, please leave me a comment below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you haven't, and in the description of this video, I've left a link for the book that started my journey into yogic philosophy if you want to learn more. Thank you guys. I'll be back in 2 weeks to discuss the second limb of yoga, the niyamas.